Does anybody here work in marketing? Thought there might be a few of you. My job is to look at all of the kind of world's best marketing, all the world's best creative ideas to put into our crazy quarterly magazine and our digital platforms. So I'm looking at a lot of campaigns, and people always ask me, like, what is the best Snapchat campaign, or what is the best, conversational UI campaign? A couple weeks ago, I got asked, what's the most effective digital campaign ever? And so I kind of thought about it long and hard, and I wanted to bring that story to you guys. It's maybe a little unexpected. It's the story of Olympic Games and a worm. And it started a couple years ago with a computer worm called Stuxnet. And Stuxnet was really interesting in that security researchers began noticing this malware software everywhere, in factories, in air traffic control systems, all over the place. And it was replicating itself by taking advantage of something called a zero-day exploit. That's something that developers or people that are creating software, wittingly or unwittingly, build into the system that allows it to be exploited. Very valuable, about $100,000 in the black market for a zero-day exploit. Stuxnet took advantage of about 4 Windows zero-day exploits, just to reproduce itself promiscuously around the world. And it did this, and it was moving across these machines, unseen and unheard. It was found everywhere, until it finally found what it was looking for. And what it was looking for was that kind of structure at the bottom left there. That's the Natanz nuclear fuel enrichment plant in Iran. A worker unwittingly brought that on a USB to transfer some files to work, and all of a sudden, out of the hundreds of millions of different USBs, this landed in the right place. It started spinning up the enrichment system, which controls these nuclear centrifuges, and started spinning them out of control. The malware payload deployed. Meanwhile, in the control room, the virus was smart enough to show the people that were in control of the control room, like looped security footage, like in Ocean's 11. And so while these centrifuges were literally tearing themselves apart, these guys had no idea. They were watching this looped security surveillance footage. So while these were crashing, the operators thought nothing was wrong, which is kind of a scary thing to think about at a nuclear reactor. Everything was normal. It was a digital weapon of physical destruction. This infected 14 different industrial sites around Iran, around the world actually. It was all over the place. But luckily they caught it in time, and the main kind of nuclear power plant of Iran, the Bushehr power plant, was offline. It was undergoing maintenance. Otherwise there would have been a national Iranian blackout. The entire country would have lost power for any kind of number of unknown days. It's kind of hard to fix when stuff like that happens. Former CIA Director Michael Hayden said that this was crossing the Rubicon. This was the first attack of a major nature in which a cyber attack was put to effect on physical targets, physical destruction. Traditionally, it had been computer to computer. So everybody was kind of wondering, where had this come from? And so security researchers began to unpack the kind of computer code of this. It was about 15,000 lines of computer code. They found multiple references to the Hebrew Bible. But they realized it was so sophisticated and contained so much that they knew people had been working on it for years. And it turned out, the New York Times broke a story that showed that the US had been basically building it along with Israel for like 5 or 6 years. It was something that was green-lighted under George W. Bush as Operation Olympic Games, and then was adapted and kind of personally pushed forward by Obama, ultimately to deploy this to encourage the Iranians towards a nuclear deal that would get rid of sanctions and finally get them to come around on stopping to develop this stuff. We actually tested this in the US. They built a facility to stop this Iranian enrichment program. They built a facility in the US and deployed Stuxnet here before it was ever actually deployed in the wild nearer to Iran, which is kind of unsettling as well. So now this thing is out in the world. The zero-day exploits have been patched. It's available. You can go on GitHub right now and fork down a Stuxnet copy and control anything from an amusement park ride to traffic systems, power systems, all this different stuff. So at the start of this, I told you I wanted to talk about this creative use of digital technology that was really, really effective. And I'm not here to really condone or condemn Stuxnet, okay? I think that it was obviously very effective in accomplishing its goals. But I think what makes it important is it shows an attitude towards the possibilities of digital technology, which we don't see very often. I certainly don't see very often in the kind of digital creative work that I look at, most of it comes across as apps. It comes across as websites. It comes across as stuff you get on the screen or on your smartphone or that interrupts you as you're walking down the street. Digital is more than that, and we're really just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible with this technology. We interviewed a really interesting guy a couple years ago at Contagious, a guy called Richard Seymour. He's an eminent British product designer, and he said, for perhaps only the third time in the last 600 years, what we can do technologically is stretching miles ahead of our ability to imagine what we can do with it. It's really hard to underestimate the kind of implications of that statement. We live in a digital world where we're seemingly only limited by our creativity and only bound by what we can imagine, not what's actually physically possible. And so we're coming around to this point of view that we shouldn't use digital as a synonym for websites and apps and screen-based iterations. We should really try to think beyond that and really try to kind of go as Ames, Tom Hardy's character in Inception said, try to dream a little bigger, darling, and really try to think about like conceptually, like structurally, what real creativity can bring to these marvelous technologies that are around us. Thank you very much.